Please use the chat. We have a decent sized crowd today, so please use the chat to ask any questions and make any comments. And keep yourself muted. I will mute you or turn off your video if I so decide. I reserve the right. And please be respectful to presenters and other participants. And so a little bit about what we're going to do today. We're excited to be joined by John Sherwinski from CTA to talk about the very exciting frequent bus network, which you may have heard about recently launching this week. So that'll be kind of our focus for today. And then I'm going to give some updates on some kind of hot topics, things that are happening within the city of Chicago, including an update on our campaign to lower Chicago's speed limit. And run down what's going to be a very busy state legislative session for all things active transportation related. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let John take over.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And yeah, thanks for having me, everyone. My name is John Sherwinski. I'm the Director of Service Planning and Traffic Engineering at CTA. So like Jim mentioned, I wanted to share some of the exciting news about our frequent bus network that'll be starting up soon. And I'll just share my screen real quick.
Looks good.
Good. All right. Are you seeing the presenter view or the full? Let's try it. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, never know what screen it's on. So yeah, I think some of what's going on here is we'll be implementing a frequent network that'll be on 20 bus routes this year. So the concept is service will operate every 10 minutes or better along the entire route on these 20 routes, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekends. About 90% of our riders ride during those time periods. So this will get at a lot of trips in the city and surrounding areas. A lot of these routes are fairly frequent during the rush hours. So it's, most of the improvement you're going to see is midday, evening, and weekend service. And it's, the idea is to, provide a consistent level of service that, people can rely on without having to think or, check a schedule or, and without having to wait too long for the bus. So that's kind of the goal of what we're doing here. This is coming out of our bus vision study that we completed last year. Phase 1 we completed, which one of the takeaways, which I think everyone is aware of, we could use some improvements on our weekend and off-peak service a lot, and you can check out that report on our website if you just Google CTA bus vision. But a lot of our service, especially in the off-peak periods, was scaled back around 2010, due to some budget restrictions. So this is restoring a lot of that, and honestly, beyond. We've never really been at this level of service, but a lot of this is restoring some of those. So with this network of 20 routes, about 70% of our service area
I'm just
within walking distance of a frequent bus route. So we're getting at a lot of people with this network here, and it's going to be implemented throughout the year over 4 schedule changes, or kind of picks as we call them at CTA, but that's we have 4 main schedule changes throughout the year. The first is coming up March 23rd, so a week from Sunday. We're going to be addressing 8 bus routes here, and you can see them here, but I'll go through them. The J14 Jeffrey Jump runs on Jeffrey Boulevard. Number 34 South Michigan, which runs on the far south side of the city. 47th Street, Cicero, 60 Blue Island, 26th, 63rd Street, 79th Street, and 95th Street. So you'll notice a lot of those are kind of south and west sides of the city. We also implemented on these routes, these are going to see some of the bigger changes. So a lot of these are going to see a 25% or more increase in service. So, a lot of impactful changes here. And it's not just how frequent the bus is running, but, where the service is going to be. A lot of our routes, we kind of target the heaviest ridership portion of the route. And, some of that will go away with this network where more trips will run end to end, and, we'll maintain that 10 minutes on the entire route. And, part of the way we'll go about that is, extending some of those shorter trips so they cover the entire route. So I think simpler schedules will, kind of be a outcome of this as well. So with the spring pick that we'll get with those first 8 routes, we'll get to 35% of the service area within walking distance of a frequent route. And then we'll expand this throughout the year. So our summer schedule change in June, we'll add 4 routes, Cottage Grove, Western, Madison, and Chicago. In the fall or August, we change our schedules when the school year starts, but the Pulaski route, the Garfield, Belmont, and Kimball Homan. And then in winter, it'll be Ashland, Roosevelt, North Avenue, and Lawrence. So that's kind of the end of the slideshow here. I'm also just going to share a, I don't know why I stopped sharing, but I'm going to share a flyer. It has a lot of the same information. I can send this to Jim to, share with you all after the meeting if you like, but just kind of walk through that real quick. So as a little more detail on it here, but 227 rides on these routes throughout the year. We're hoping that goes up with this better service. 2.3 million people are going to be within that half-mile walk to a frequent route. And then just kind of outlining some of the, bigger takeaways on these routes. You can see on 47th Street, services levels are going to double on the west end of the route. On the Blue Island route, weekend service is, going to be almost 50% better. So just kind of some of the key takeaways here, kind of outlining some of the reductions in waiting time and whatnot. And then it breaks out those same routes I shared earlier. And then a nice map that gives the kind of the implementation plan, what is going to come in spring, summer, fall, and winter. So you can see that and see, how well it connects to, helps your trips or, other people, who might be wanting to take advantage of this. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the information I have. I'm happy to answer any questions on this. And
thanks a lot, John. That's exciting. Who doesn't want their bus to show up more frequently?
Yeah.
And so if people have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. I saw there's some questions more generally about CTA, which I'm not sure we could put on John's shoulders fairly since we invited him to talk about buses. If people have stuff about bus frequency, we could talk about that. But I think I know about the increase in slow zones and some of that other stuff. There is a discussion about increasing funding for CTA right now happening in Springfield. So I think if you care about slow zones, you should be sure you're paying attention to that situation, which I'm sure you are, Ethan. But I think typically with stuff like that, it all points to an underfunded system when we talk about a lack of maintenance. But
yeah.
So
Yeah,
we did have one kind of bus related question from Simone. So these are all along existing routes. Are there plans to address the in-access in certain areas? Since you mentioned it sounds like most people have 2.3 million folks within a half mile, but
yeah. Yeah, so I think this network would be rolled out on existing routes. I think, with improved funding, we would love to expand this network. We kind of have and if you know CTA online information in detail, we have a service standards document on our website, which outlines a set of our key routes, which basically are routes spaced every mile across the network. We would love to implement this over that entire key route network. I think, there's a lot up in the air with funding, and, I think if we were properly funded, I think that's what we should be doing. And I think with the right funding, I think we could provide that level of service. So I think definitely with even better service, I think with better funding, we'd want that to go to improving our service.
A question about the 22 bus. Is there a reason why it wasn't included in the frequent route network?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that is definitely a route. If we were able to expand this, I think we would look to add, it's a very high ridership route and, it makes a lot of sense. I think in this round, it's in pretty close proximity to the rail network. So we were kind of, trying to space this out. So, we kind of filled some of the gaps that weren't covered in rail first. So I think that was the methodology we followed, but I definitely agree. It's a great route, a lot of ridership, and I think that's one that could be addressed in the future.
Great. Well, if there aren't any other questions about the bus frequency, we can talk more about other transit stuff, but we can let John go first.
Yeah,
And thank you, John, for taking the
thanks.
time. I know it was I know it was I put in a last minute request to John, so
Yeah,
extra credit for showing up with only a couple days
yeah,
notice. So I appreciate
absolutely. Yeah,
your
yeah. No, thanks so much for having me. And yeah, I'll email that flyer later today so we can get that spread around too. But
great.
thanks everyone.
Perfect.
All right, take care.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Okay, awesome. So I am going to keep things moving along here. Um, so we were this is a good segue to talk about our what's happening in the state level right now in especially on the transit front. So hopefully folks can see what I'm sharing right now is a blog we have up. I'll post in the chat as well, but our a handy guide to our state legislative agenda. There is a lot happening this year. I'm sure folks have heard about all the transit action. We're talking about it already. Really a important kind of once in a generation session for public transit in Northeast Illinois. But in addition, there's a ton of other really exciting things happening. And for whatever reason, the Illinois General Assembly gods have conspired to make next week a really busy week on a lot of this stuff. So I know someone was asking what can folks do to help elected officials. There's actually an action folks can do right now, which I will get to in a moment. But I wanted to kind of quickly skim through this like state legislative agenda for folks. Because so much is going on, and you're going to start hearing a lot from active trans over the next week, in particular, about ways that you can support this. So, starting with transportation and transit policy, so folks know, we're facing an existential crisis for the transit network, and we need new revenue and we need governance reform. And so there are a few different bills that are introduced to help support that goal. One of the things that's going to be a big focus this year and next week is the Metropolitan Mobility Authority Act, which would implement long overdue transit funding, service and governance reforms, and establish a unified regional transit agency. So that bill is actually gonna it last week or this week it was heard there was a Senate hearing on that bill that took place. There's another alternative proposal that has been prepared by labor organizations that was also discussed. And so the same thing is going to happen next week, but this time on the House of Representatives side. So there's going to be a committee hearing where these different proposals for how do we save transit will get discussed, and elected officials will have an opportunity to just ask questions and learn more about the issue. So one of the things that you can do, which a lot of you might have done last week already for the Senate side, is submit a witness slip. So I'm pulling up this website. You can see right here. This is the actual. So when there are committee hearings in the Illinois General Assembly, you can remotely submit what's called a witness slip, which is basically a way for you to kind of register your support or opposition to a piece of legislation that the committee is discussing. So this is a really great way to showcase support or opposition to pieces of legislation that are kind of earlier on in the legislative process. And our elected representatives really do look towards these witness slips as one of the an important signal to get a temperature check on where their constituents are at. So very easy to do, and you can do this uh, in just a couple of minutes to follow that link to fill out this form to submit a witness slip for next Wednesday's March 19th Transportation Committee hearing. It's the Transportation Regulation Roads and Bridges Committee that this bill, HB 1833, will be discussed. And you can just fill out that form and click on the proponent button is the kind of key step, and then submit that, and that'll get logged uh, right into the system that all of the folks on the committee will be able to see. And so last week we had over 700 people register their support for the bill in the Senate, with only I think like a couple dozen maybe against it. So it's a really powerful way to for us to flex our muscles. But wait, there's more. So in addition to the really important work happening around transit, for whatever reason, the General Assembly has also decided to take up some exciting legislation related to safe streets for all and eliminating roadway fatalities and making streets safer for people walking and biking. So here you can see a couple of different bills. Top of that is I'm going to talk a little bit more about our City of Chicago campaign to lower the speed limit, but there is a companion piece of legislation on the state level that would also lower the default speed limit from to 25 from 30 in urban areas like Chicago, and 20 on residential streets and 10 in alleys. So that's an exciting piece of statewide legislation that would make it really easier for communities, including Chicago, to build safer streets and better bike lanes and better pedestrian infrastructure. Another bill that's coming down the pike is a little bit more technical, but still very important. It would recognize bicyclists as permitted and intended users of the roadways. So we are the only state in the union that doesn't have this protect where people on bikes don't have the same legal protections available to other people on a roadway. Meaning, if you're riding a bike legally on a road where maybe there isn't a bike lane, and there's an issue with a poorly maintained street and you get hurt, you don't necessarily then as a bicyclist have standing to to get legal redress or sue the city or municipality or whatever authority. So this would change that technical thing to say, even if you're not riding in a bike lane, bicyclists are intended users of our roadways in Illinois. So a small and technical change, but one that has really powerful ramifications, because basically it will mean that it will apply additional pressure to municipalities to make sure that they're keeping their roads in a good state of repair, to avoid situations where they might become liable for injuries due to poorly maintained roads. So it's an important change, and one that really kind of just increases accountability for the people who should be taking care of the roadways. Um, there's also, excitingly, I know this is something that those of us who have been bike advocates for a long time have had in our hopes and dreams in our hearts, which is the safety stop, also known as the Idaho stop. And this is basically legislation that would allow people on bikes to use a stop sign the same way that you would use a yield sign. So if the intersection is clear, you can proceed without having to stop, come to a complete stop, maintain your momentum. It also is a safety. We know it's a safety intervention. It increases people's visibility in intersections, which we know most crashes are happening at. And so this is a proven, change to policy that other states, not just Idaho, that's why I call it the safety stop now, have begun to adopt. And so happy to see this bill being pushed right now as well. We're going to be sending out, depending on where you live, you might be getting an email from us. You might be getting an email from us for certain legislative districts, soon in the next a couple days, talking about sending an email on a couple of these bills because these are also going to be up in committee next week. And so, if you live in the district of one of those committee members, you'll be hearing from us asking you to reach out to let them know that you support some of this stuff. And then a couple of other exciting things. Uh, we don't have an e-bike rebate program. If you buy an electric car, you're not able to get the same kind of rebate that you get if you buy an electric bike. So, making it easier for people to adopt this really wonderful new tool to be more sustainable. And then also this last bill here, some important legislation on kind of expanding the definition of bicycles to help us, expand who has access to cycling and ensure we're being clear about who is and is not welcome on bikeways and things like that. So yeah, a lot of a lot of good things going on, Valerie. I think to answer your question, why do we, well, why are there so many good things happening? In the state house right now, it's because folks like all of you have, been vocal over the years, and as more and more people who care about the same things we care about have been elected to office, we have a lot more champions than we ever have before. People who see this as an important part of their role as state representative to be fighting for safer streets. So thank yourselves for advocating and for creating like conditions where our issues now are front and center in the stuff that people are grappling with in the General Assembly. I did want to give one more quick update on our on the city side. Let me share this again. Um, So, folks, hopefully have been following our campaign. It's been really active since last May to lower Chicago's default speed limit. And I talked about the state bill. The city has had a similar ordinance, and we really need both things because each level of government has a different kind of role in the kind of speed limit conversation in our city. So it's kind of a both and situation. But we did have kind of a window of opportunity here in the city of Chicago, thanks to one of our great champions, Alderman Daniel Espada, took the initiative to introduce an ordinance to lower Chicago's default speed limit to 25 miles per hour. Since like the last summer, it's been kind of wending its way through city council. It was part of some parliamentary shenanigans early on where it got sent to the Rules Committee. So we sent a bunch of emails and had letters and showed up and testified to get it out of the Rules Committee. And then it ran smack dab into a really contentious budget season in the city of Chicago. And so it got kind of pushed to the side while alders were trying to figure out how to pay the bills. And unfortunately, as part of that conversation, they also sort of aggravated one of the points of tension around the speed limit. So there's kind of a couple of two main kind of areas of tension. There's concern that lowering the speed limit is it's a money grab from the city of Chicago, and sadly, both Mayor Lightfoot and Mayor Johnson have given people every reason to believe that's the case by changes they've made to the speed camera program during the budget process to increase revenue, which really undermines our safety message. So, as advocates for safe streets, it's always really frustrating to see cameras being discussed in the context of revenue and not in the context of saving lives. And it's unfortunate that we've been kind of put in that position again where the speed limit change now is brushing up against this separate but related conversation around revenue and automated enforcement. The other big area of concern, also related to enforcement, is just fines and fees and punitive fines and fees as an equity issue more broadly, and then the role that speeding could play in giving another opportunity for the police to engage in pretextual stops, which is where police use like low-level traffic offenses to pull people over, really looking for evidence of other crimes. and it's basically kind of a new stop and frisk that there's a lot of evidence that this is the Chicago Police Department. This is a big problem. So pretextual stops are bad, and we know that there's this tension around enforcement and the revenue question in speed limit. Now, some of this was, of course, anticipated, and one of the things that the sponsor for this legislation did was introduce companion legislation that would set up a fines and fees working group to evaluate, how do we reorient our speed camera program so that we're really focused on safety outcomes and not on revenue. Um, and so that was a companion piece of legislation. And then on the pretextual stops front, one of the things, so we're Active Trans is part of a coalition called Freedom Move, which is working on this issue. It's led by an awesome organization called Impact for Equity. And they've done a bunch of they're lawyers, so they have like lawyerly superpowers. But they did a great research showing, what are the different laws that the police are using to make these pretextual stops. And actually, speeding is vanishingly small. It's only 0.7%. So the police aren't using speeding as a tool in pretextual stops. But it's also important to be sensitive to those concerns as part of the broader street safety conversation. All that to say, so we had this kind of money concern. We had these concerns about enforcement that were obviously not adequately addressed in our discussions with alders. And in February, there was a vote on this ordinance and it lost. Folks probably saw 21-28. There was a lot of debate during that meeting, and a lot of people, I think, were on. I think what was good is that we were able to hear from a lot of aldermen, and folks really had to kind of lay their cards on the table and say what was on their minds. And now we feel that pretty confident that we're going to be able to engage really constructively with folks based off of what was said and where we can help educate people. So we're in the process of kind of retooling some additional like outreach and educational material, because it was also clear that like a lot of people don't understand the role that the speed limit plays in like a broader safe system on our streets. And so we're kind of going to get back to basic principles as the this fines and fees working group is going to get to work over the next few months. And so my guess would be like once this fines and fees working group is able to do its work, and that is kind of a space to have to kind of air some of these concerns and really talk through them with some of the alders who expressed them uh, most recently in February, that we'll be able to work through a lot of these issues and have another bite at the apple, as it were, in the not too distant future later this year. So I'm hopeful that we'll still get there, and that we're going to get there in a way that people feel is equitable and not gonna increase harm in our communities, but help address our safety crisis, which is what we are all about. So stay tuned on more updates there. But for now, the speed limit conversation has really kind of shifted to the state level, which is also exciting and could be another pathway towards us getting where we need to go. So that is the end of our agenda. If you have questions or comments, please don't feel free to reach out to me, or my colleague Alex also works on a lot of our city of Chicago issues. We want to hear from you. We will have next month's Suburban Advocacy Connect. So we'll post about that on social media and via the email network. And then we'll have this conversation again back in May. So a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. Until then, yeah, watch the website, stay connected, reach out if you got any questions. Thank you all for joining us. And I'll talk to you later.